I want to welcome everyone to our online Q&A. We have the principals from all 4 of our campuses here, and we're going to talk a little bit about how to help your child if they're struggling in school. I know report cards just came out, and hopefully you weren't too surprised by how they did, but if you were surprised by how they did, we're going to give you some tips on how you can keep track of that throughout the 6 weeks, and then also give you some ideas on how to help your child at home, and then let you know what we can do at the schools to help your child succeed. If you have any questions that we do not cover, you can always call the campus. You can send them an email, a message through ParentSquare, or if you're not sure who to ask, just use our general questions at Snyder ISD email, and we can get you to whoever you need to speak with. So let's start off with Ms. Rhodes. What if a parent is concerned about how their child is doing at school? What kind of things do you have in place there at Snyder Primary School that maybe are ongoing? And then is there anything extra that kids can have access to?
The first thing you need to do is contact their teacher to see where they are, what you can do to help, where they're struggling. We have things here on campus. We have tutoring here during the school day. And so if a student is struggling, we have ways that we can help them. But there's going to be some times where they do have homework at home to practice the things that we're teaching them at school, or reading, sometimes spelling lists and things like that. And so if you're struggling as a parent and just need some help, please reach out to your teachers, and we can go from there. We always want to keep that line of communication open.
Absolutely. So you all pull out for something that people might have heard as RTI, is that right?
Yes, it's RTI, response to intervention. And so we initially pull those students who struggled with their beginning of year MAP scores, which is just a norm referenced exam that we give students middle, end of year. And I believe that you got those results with your report cards yesterday. And so if you have questions about that, about how your student performed based on their grade level, the other students in the nation is what it's actually normed against, please give us a call and we can explain those things to you. But initially, kids that get intervention at school are those students who struggled with that exam, because it's a pretty good indicator as to where they are within their grade level, or above or even below their grade level.
And those MAP scores are something, the MAP testing is something that we do from primary all the way up through high school. And if you're not familiar with it, sometimes the scores can be a little bit confusing. I know it was a new system for a lot of us, and even the teachers were learning how to interpret those. So it's a little different than maybe your typical A, B, C, D type of scale that maybe we're used to seeing, where you want your kid to get 100. That's not necessarily how it is with MAP, correct?
Yes, it won't. I think the average to kind of make sure that your student is leveled correctly is they'll get about 52% of the questions correct. 52 to 60% of the questions correct. So in order to push them as high as they can go, then they're going to have some questions that they do not know. And I think the neat thing about that is, if your student has been with Snyder ISD for a while, you'll see a progression of when we started MAP year before last, I believe. And so you'll be able to see the growth in your student. Or sometimes during the summer, you might see that summer slide where they scored something at spring last year, and now all of a sudden they dropped a little bit during the summer. But teachers work with that, our interventionists work with that, our special ed people work with that to try to give the students that they are needing at their level to get them moving forward.
And I think that MAP is a great point as well, because so often we just look at the report card to see how the child is doing. But we also, and I like that you all had those available with the report cards too, we can look at look at the map to see how they're doing nationwide. So we're really trying to get a good overall picture of how the student is doing. So let's not just take one thing into account. I know everybody wants, hey, I want my kid to get A honor roll or AB honor roll, or, I want them to pass this year, but we also need to look at that other component of MAP as well. And hopefully y'all will be hearing more about that as parents and getting a better understanding of how that factors in. There's also other components of MAP, and we could do probably a whole one on this, and we might help people understand, but also growth measures as well, because we want to see that growth for students as well. So that's something important to look at also. As far as contacting the teachers, what if a parent is having trouble contacting the teacher at school through ParentSquare? Maybe they're not getting the response they need, but then what should they do?
So either come by the school or call the school and talk to one of the principals, and we can figure out what's going on and can help with that communication. So if you're struggling with your ParentSquare, or you're not getting the communication that you want from the teacher, just come by and visit with one of us, Mrs. Boyd or Ms. Head or myself, and we can help you get that moving in the right direction. And I want to just reiterate, sometimes those MAP scores are really hard to read. So if you're looking at your MAP scores and you want help, just come on up and we can sit down and we can explain it to you. Shows you the gaps that your student has, like you said, the growth that they've made, and it actually can give you suggestions as to things that you can do at home to help alleviate those, or to help close those gaps.
Miss Cade, I know I've got a student on your campus. I just got the report card and I got some MAP scores. So parents, those should have come home. What if a parent has a concern about how their child did on your campus? What's the best way to go about that? And what kinds of things do you have in place already?
Yes, ma'am. I would say we're very similar to the primary school in that if you have concerns, I would say first reach out to the teacher of your student, and they can direct you and help you and explain those things. But like we mentioned, if you're not able to get that contact or you're struggling with that, please call us and we can help you in any way. So you can come by myself or Mr. Myers, my assistant principal. We're always willing to sit down and visit with you about it. Some of the things that we have in place, we have built-in tutorial time. Every student has what we call intervention and enrichment time during school that's already scheduled in. And so the teachers look at how students are performing in the classroom and on assessments, and then they plan stuff during that time based on the student's needs. So if a student is struggling with a specific concept, they might have extra practice during that time. Or if a student is above grade level, they find ways to do things to enrich that learning as well. We also offer RTI, that response to intervention. So we have a math and a reading teacher that plans those lessons and works. We have people that pull those kids out during different times of the day if they are behind grade level. And usually what we use for that to start the year is the STAR scores from the end of the year last year. And so students that didn't pass the STAR test will start the year with RTI with those students. But we also offer that to students. Maybe they did pass, but they're still just struggling a little bit. So if you have a child that is not getting that and you feel like they're needing it, please reach out to us. Our teachers also recommend students that if they notice that they're still struggling, we can get them into that program as well. Some of our teachers have already started after school tutorials, not every teacher, but that is an option as well, just depending on the teacher and the student. That could be available as well.
Okay, so there's two different things that you all have in place, right? You have the RTI and then you have a separate intervention time. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And Ms. Rhodes, do you all have that too?
Yes, ma'am. We have the exact same thing.
So if you hear a child talking about intervention time, it might be different than the specialized RTI intervention, right? Okay, got it.
And we also, during our encore, what we call our encore time when our students go to PE, STEM, and music, we also have a teacher that works, we call it our literacy lab. And so she also works with students that are struggling with reading. And so she pulls them during that time as well. And so that's another way, if your kid is struggling with reading, that we could provide some extra support.
And I'm glad you brought up reading, because that's something that I wanted to touch on as well. Both of y'all have at your campus an emphasis on reading, and we'll talk about that at the other campuses as well. Those reading logs, is that just extra work, or what's the purpose of those nighttime reading assignments? What does that do for a child to help them?
Yes, ma'am. And we're rolling out, it'll be coming soon, so you'll be getting information on it, a new program for this that's called Bean Stack. Is that right, Mrs. Rhodes? It's called Bean Stack, and it's a way for you to digitally log those reading logs, which makes it handy for parents as well. But the importance of reading is, the rest of your life, you're going to have to read to learn. And so it's really hard as you progress through, especially as you move on up to junior high and high school. Every subject requires you to be able to read to learn. And so independent reading at home just gives those students good practice. It helps them develop a love for reading so that they're enjoying reading while they're gaining knowledge. In our new reading curriculum, the exciting thing to me that I'm seeing is our students are not only learning reading concepts, but they're gaining knowledge in science and history. And it's been exciting to watch. Our fourth grade students are just finishing a unit on science and inventions, and just seeing the excitement to read and learn about what they're reading about is really neat to see. So I'm excited to see the growth this year.
And something I think too, if your child is frustrated with the reading, parents can read to their child too. I mean, they still get a lot out of that, would you say?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Our kids, it's great for them to hear you read, because many students, if they're struggling to read, that comprehension's not there. But if they're able to hear how you read and how that comes out in your head, they're able to understand it better. And it helps them, as they're learning to read, to hear what it should sound like. And even kids that can read, it's just fun to spend that quality time with your student and share that love for reading with them as well.
It's a good thing for siblings too, to have
Yes.
them read to each other, if you can do that. So how can parents help their kids at home? We talked about the reading logs. Is there anything else that maybe parents should be doing to help their elementary age student do better in school?
Yes, ma'am. Most of our teachers are pretty good about the ParentSquare communication. They'll send out like a weekly newsletter. Most of my teachers send that out. And for instance, our math teachers with this new curriculum are sending out IXL assignments that align with what they're learning in class. And so anytime that your child can get in and work on those skills, it gives them extra practice on those skills, especially if they're struggling in their math. Just monitoring, like you mentioned, not just their grades, but also I would tell you to pay special attention to their assessment scores, because these are aligned to the STAR. And so what they're going to have to do at the end of the year on the STAR test. So if they're really struggling on those assessments, talk to the teacher or read those newsletters and say, what skills do we need to be practicing? And that's something that the school provides, that's on their Chromebook, that they can get on anytime to practice. We also provide a program called My Path that aligns to that MAP test that we talked about. And the student can log into it, and it assigns them lessons based on how they did on the MAP test. So if they're struggling in a certain area, it gives them lessons to practice that skill. So those are things that are easy that you could do. You could have them get out for 30 minutes after school and just practice those things. Those are just some extra easy things. Our curriculum also, and I've noticed even as a parent to a child at primary, the teacher sending home a parent letter that comes along with the lesson they're learning, like for math, and it'll tell you how they're teaching it, what they're doing. So take the time to read through that so that you know what your kid is doing at school. And if they need help, you're able to help them, and it explains it really well. So just check your kid's folder, look for those things, and see what you could do to reinforce what they're doing at school. Another big thing that I always like to mention is attendance. When your child is not at school, they're not learning. And so if they're sick, we understand, keep them home, but try your best to get your kid to school every day, and please don't pick them up early. We have parents that have a habit that like to come pick their kids up early to do different things. And I understand we're all busy, but we go all day until 3:50. And if you're pulling your kid out, they could be missing reading class or science or math. And so it's important that they're here as much as possible.
But another thing too, what you were talking about is some of those targeted programs that are already on the Chromebook. That's a good carrot that parents can use as well, is if you get on and do this for 30 minutes, then you can have 30 minutes of electronic time on whatever game you want to play.
That's a great idea. And I will just throw this out here because I'm a principal, but I'm also a parent, and I learned something new this week as far as the family access on Skyward, because I've only ever viewed it as an administrator because my child has actually been on my campus. Well, this year he's at the junior high, and I didn't know this, but I learned it, that when you log in to look at their grades, you can see their average, but if you click over, there's a place where you can look at each assignment and their grade on each assignment. And so I had never done that before, but I was able to go look at that and see test scores, which I feel are very important to assess how they're doing, and then missing work. So just make sure if you haven't found that you go in and look at that.
The other thing I like doing as a parent on Skyward is I set up an alert. So each Saturday, I believe, I get a summary, and you can do that in your account. If you go up to your name, I believe, and you click on your account, you can go in and set up settings. I did daily for a little while. That was a little too much. Also because teachers are entering their grades in weekly. So there's no sense in worrying about it every day. But if you're not sure how to set that up, call the campus if you can't figure it out, and we can help you. Now, of course, kids at the junior high, they're moving up to quite a bit more classes, a lot more responsibility, especially this first 6 weeks for our new sixth graders. Might be a little bit of an adjustment. Can you tell us a little bit about things that you have in place already, and then also additional supports that might be available for kids that struggle this first 6 weeks?
So real similar to what everyone else is doing, needs them reaching out to those teachers first. Of course, there's a lot more teachers for them to check out. So make sure they're checking on their Skyward and making sure that kids are turning in their assignments regularly, reaching out to the teachers, following the ParentSquare. We do have our RTI class in place. We based that upon star scores that we had come in. So we had those put into place, and we've also already started all of our tutoring. We have students showing up as early as 7 a.m. To get tutoring because our staff is arriving, and getting those things in place to just reassure them. Also at this age, it's time for us to help support our kiddos, learn how to advocate a little bit for themselves. So I encourage parents to get your kid to stop by and talk to the teacher. Go, hey, I'm curious what's going on, so that they can start learning that skill, because as they progress into high school and into college, they're going to need that.
For the tutoring that you have, does the child just show up, or is this something they arrange with the teacher? What's the best way to do that?
So we do have some that are already planned and scheduled. Those have been contacted and they're just there regularly. But all my staff has a minimum of 2 times a week that they offer tutorials. Sometimes there's a challenge with coaches, so you give them a heads up and they assign you to the other teacher who's teaching their same content area. And we get some help through there as well. But a lot of it is communication with the teachers, communication with, this is when my tutoring schedule is, which our teachers have put out there. And then, hey, just give them a heads up that I plan on being there, so that we can double check and make sure. It always helps if we're communicating back and forth. So, and a lot of that can be done straight through that ParentSquare app.
Now, what about during the WIN period? What is offered during that? Do y'all work on any classwork or interventions during that time?
So during our WIN period, we do a lot of our intervention activities. We are, just like everybody else, we've used the MAP scores. And so our math teachers put push out a math lesson. Typically, yes, it is through IXL so that the kids can have that review and they should already know kind of what's going on. What we're really seeing is a big push right now on just basic arithmetic. Can you add, subtract, multiply, and divide? Those things go a long way, not only down in the early ages, but they will carry you far in mathematics all the way through your college. So just getting some of those basic math facts right now. We're doing, for reading with inside there, we're doing a thing called MIMBing. It is a big vocabulary push. We're learning that a lot of our kids, they don't comprehend exactly what they read, back to what the ladies earlier were saying. So we're trying to build their vocabulary. So about 15 minutes a day, 3 times a week, they are working on their vocabulary to enhance it so they can better comprehend and understand what they are reading in all of those classes. The next piece that we actually end up with is we have a social emotional part of that week as well. So Ms. Falkenberry, our counselor, has been pushing out kindness lessons and how to work through things whenever we're upset, when we get angry, so that we're just not blowing up, how to de-escalate ourselves. A lot of self-care is inside of that as well. So it is our win period, but it is structured throughout so the week so that kids are getting the review, the social emotional, or the time to go to the library. So a lot of things are packed within inside of that short little window of 50 minutes one day a week. So, or sorry, every day during the week. So
As far as things that parents can do to help their child at home, that IXL is something that they can get on. Usually those lessons that are assigned to them are starred. Is that correct?
yes, they are. And then I would say check the Schoology. I know that we chose not to send the Chromebooks home. We were having some challenges with those. They can still get on Schoology on an electronic device anywhere because they do have that. So it's always a good time to go check it. It's not where any of the grades or anything are, but it's where you can see what's been going on in class or what the students have been assigned to do. I would follow up with my child regularly about homework, especially in math. Hey, what did you do with math? What did you do in math today? Did you finish all the work in class? Show me your notes from this, just to be following up and making sure that they are doing their part and keeping up with everything. So just having those great conversations that go on every night at the dinner table or on the ride home.
Anything else that you want to add, Mr. Resch, as far as how parents can help, or if they're concerned, what should they do?
If they're concerned, just first of all, ParentSquare, reach out to that teacher. If they're not getting any response or they don't know what to do next, they can always reach out to any one of my administrators or my counselor, and we will get back with them and help guide them in the right direction.
Mr. Alaniz, last but not least, tell us a little bit about the high school. We've moved on to even more responsibility, a lot of variety of classes that students have aside from just the 4 core classes. Tell us a little bit about what you have in place already, and then what extra things can students do if they're needing help?
Well, similar to the previous campus, we do have most of our teachers, the majority of teachers reach out through ParentSquare. Very, very good tool for them to use to address the issues of concerns with parents reaching or getting a quick response. Our expectation is they respond within 24 hours. If they don't do that, then my suggestion to parents is to make sure to send another email to include the grade level administrator. Mrs. Wattis is in charge of 9th and 11th graders. Mr. Tate is in charge of 10th and 12th graders, and then we can help our teachers to meet that expectation. So ParentSquare is a great opportunity. We also asked parents that, again, we are trying to teach our young people to advocate for themselves. At some point in time, they're going to have to start taking charge of their own learning. So we are a big advocate of promoting that students take a big charge. It doesn't mean that we're asking parents to ignore that. I mean, from the sidelines, you can still look at Skyward, you can still do all the things you need to, but we really need to start pushing our especially seniors, those are that go into upper level courses, that sort of thing, to start being more advocates for their own work and that sort of thing. We do provide tutorials 4 days a week. We provide tutorials Monday night at 6:15, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We provide it at 4:15. They're all an hour long. We are currently working on schedules with our department heads to have each core area to provide at least a minimum of 2 hours outside of that time, so that we can hopefully meet all the needs of the students, because as in high school, our kids are so thinly spread in a lot of activities. So we have to try to be and find creative ways to meet the needs, especially when they're falling behind, especially this week's been crazy with UIL eligibility. So that sort of thing. We do have what we call a goal period. The goal period helps us to meet the needs as required by the state law, House Bill 4545, and to meet all those kids who have not met the STAR expectations. For those who have, we're currently doing reading, but we'll eventually go to in-class interventions and that sort of thing to help those students. But currently, reading is one of the biggest weaknesses that we have across the state. So students are a little frustrated with that right now, but like you said, you know, if we're having our teachers, even at this level, we're having our teachers read to students, and they still love it at this age level. So, and then we still have them popcorn reading. We're taking, you know, phrases from the intermediate and elementary. Kids still love it. Surprisingly, it's amazing to see some of these older kids that just, you know, light up when this thing happens. So it reminds you they're still kids. So we're still doing that, and you know, we're trying to make sure that all of these students are successful, and we're hoping that teachers understand that the more advanced, parents, that the more advanced that these classes are, the more difficult. So those kids that are accustomed to being on the A honor roll, you know, are struggling because we're introducing new concepts and preparing them for the next level. So, you know, parents can help us out we allow all our students to take their Chromebooks, their MacBooks home. Most of our teachers have all the assignments on Schoology, so they're still able to access that at home, so parents can help them in that aspect, you know, review their work, that sort of thing. So we still have that ability to do that.
And as far as homework, I know I have a student on your campus too. Kind of got them all spread out, except for Miss Rhodes' campus now. But my son has a lot more homework this year, just more so in his dual credit classes. As a parent, you know, I'd suggest asking those questions as far as what all do you have this week? Because some of those classes, they know that week what they're going to have due.
Absolutely.
So that time management, I think, is something that is really important to, as a parent, something that you can do is you're helping them kind of let go and advocate for themselves as far as grades and things like that. That time management piece, for some, maybe not all, it can still be a struggle. And then going to bed at a decent time as well.
Yes, ma'am. We are noticing more and more of that, simply because we, like you said, with the dual credit that we have, and then we also have the PTech program that we're currently doing, those things. And then, like you stated, our kids are involved in a lot, not only academically, but you know, athletically as well too. So they're involved in dual sports, dual activities, that sort of thing. So you're very correct, and it's important for parents to help us, to help students to be able to learn to have time management, to be able to do all these things and still try to be a kid. And that's very difficult. And then on top of that, we do have a lot of kids that are in our practicum stage with our PTech, which means that they are getting work-related experience in their field of study. So on top of all the educational aspects, now they have the work aspect. Welcome to the real world. And so they have that aspect built into them so they can earn the certifications, they can earn those things that they need for that particular field. So time management is very critical at this age.
And I'd suggest if you as a parent are struggling helping your child with that, or you feel like it gets too much, or to reach out to the counselor, reach out to Miss Rosas, Miss Pinkerton, to one of the principals to try to kind of get a handle on that, to see that way you and the child and the staff at the high school can work together before, you know, they get in over their head to come up with a plan.
And I would especially recommend that for our seniors, because as most of our freshmen are coming in, recognizing we're on a credit system. So not only the attendance piece is very important, it's important in terms of them earning credits to be able to graduate. Some of our freshmen are starting to learn that real quickly with some of the attendance issues we've had, because at the elementary level, it's for the entire day. On our campus, it's for each period. So they could either gain or lose credit for each particular period. But more specifically with our seniors, we're nearly in October, and the midway point for our seniors is December. If we can get them over that hump and get them have that half semester, then the spring semester is going to be hopefully the important part where they start focusing on seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. And there's a lot of things that they still have to do, but it's important that we start, and I'm going to plead with parents to make sure that they stay on top of their seniors, to making sure they're taking care of their attendance, they're taking care of their grades, they're taking care of their dual credit, any issues that communicate with counselors, communicate with grade level admin, so that we can make sure that we're not having phone calls in March and April trying to figure out how to get these kids graduated.
Absolutely. That's a really good point. And a lot of that can be accessed in Skyward, that you can look at and you can see exactly what they've got, what they have remaining. So if you haven't been in that part before as a parent, I would encourage you to go look at that. If you have questions, call the counselor. They can walk you through it. With Mr. Rush and with Mr. Alanese, both of your campuses, students that may not pass a class for 6 weeks are subject to some other repercussions. What might that be as far as what they can or can't do with UIL?
Well, for us, it's the no pass, no play rule. Any student that's involved in any UIL sanctioned event has to abide by the no pass, no play rule. The Friday following the end of the 6 weeks, students either earn, regain, or lose their eligibility. So we try to, today, for instance, focus on getting all the corrections made, the adjustments made, so that we can start printing report cards and then have that ready so that we can have the number of students that we can eligible to participate. And
Mr. Rush, what's the difference over at junior high?
It's not a whole lot different. It is the same no class, no play rule. As soon as we got those grades out, students were notified, and so were the coaches, so they could help communicate that expectation. They do have the opportunity to regain eligibility at the 3-week mark. But I also encourage parents to review the handbooks of all the activities that the students are involved in, because even though some of our activities and events are not under the UIL umbrella, our teachers are holding those students to that same standard of no pass, no play. So, and if they're doing that, that is inside of the handbook. So it really is important that we all are on top of our grades as we move forward.
Right, and all of those handbooks are online at snyderisd.net. There's a black button there and it says handbooks. You can click on that and you can view athletic handbooks, extracurricular handbooks, handbooks for each campus. I know that a lot of us, when we're registering our children for school, we may click that we've read it and maybe we haven't. But I really would encourage you, just take a little time and just glance through some of it, because a lot of the questions that we get, and we certainly don't mind answering them, but a lot of them are there in the handbook, and it might save you a little bit of distress ahead of time to know some of those answers beforehand. Well, thank y'all very much for joining us, and I appreciate the time. I think one thing too that we can all take away is that communication is so important. So if you have any concerns, don't wait. Don't sit and simmer and get frustrated. Reach out on ParentSquare to the teacher. If that doesn't work for you, call. If that doesn't work, email, come up to the school. We're here to help, and we want to help each child succeed. So let us know if we can help do that any better, or if you have any specific concerns. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.